The role of feedback on student learning. Feedback is essential for all learning areas. It helps to establish where a student is achieving and what aspects of each skill needs more support and development and understanding. To ensure feedback is effective and promotes student learning, it must be timely, constructive, motivational, personal, manageable, and have a direct relationship with the learning intentions. In today's society, it is important that we are not only using feedback through traditional methods such as handwritten responses, however, we're using a variety of more sophisticated electronic forms too. Throughout the last 4 lessons, I have endeavoured to encourage my students to accept and review a variety of forms of feedback, both traditional and electronic, to help improve their desired activity, performance, and knowledge of AFLW skills and theory. However, prior to this, it was vital that the students and I had to construct some kind of endpoint or goal that we could measure and evaluate during the lessons. As the AT3 standards suggest, feedback relies on goals and how the students are progressing to these goals. As I mentioned previously, it is important that student feedback is motivational. This is also the case with goal setting. According to Pemberton and McSweigan, in order for student learning to occur, goal setting can provide students with the persistence and increased effort that motivates them to achieve their goals and in turn reach their desired learning outcomes. As the students had established 2 aspects of AFLW they wanted to work on, we decided it would be appropriate to establish 2 goals that were relevant and specific to each individual, one theoretical and one practical. As a group, we decided it would be important these goals were revisited on a weekly basis to ensure that we were on track and meeting our goals on time. If these goals were not on track, either they were too easy and the students had already achieved them, or they were too hard and we had to reassess. Not by lowering our overall goal, but by creating smaller, more achievable goals to meet along the way to ensure student motivation remained high. Coinciding with goal setting, it was important for me to identify where the students were at with knowledge surrounding their nominated learning intention prior to the 4 lessons. I decided the best way for me to analyse what the students understood about AFLW theoretically was to design a pre-test. These questions within the pre-test are designed within the slides for your reference. According to Neil Silkind, pre-test and post-test design involves obtaining a pre-test measure of the learning intention, implemented at the beginning of a unit of work, followed by a post-test after the teaching has occurred. This gives the teacher evidence of whether learning had occurred during the unit of work. It is important to note that I did not give students these results back after the pre-test, as it is a tool for the teacher to understand the student's current level of understanding. Furthermore, the students' results from the pre-test moulded the content I taught for the first half or the theoretical portion of each lesson. At the conclusion of the 4 lessons, I then implemented a post-test to measure if student learning had occurred. While this test measured the same content as had been in the first test, I knew that students had learned far more than I had anticipated coming to the first week. Therefore, I designed another test that had the same concepts, however required a more comprehensive level of understanding. This test was treated like a summative assessment, marked and annotated with written feedback and then returned to the students. As the teacher, I had to keep in mind that the written feedback was effective and promoted student learning once again by being timely, constructive, motivational, personal, manageable, and had direct relationship to the learning intentions. While the students' mistakes were minor, it was important that the students got a chance to revise their misconceptions and have the freedom to discuss their answers. Discussions were an important aspect of these theory lessons, as it was vital for the students and I to initiate discussion around the content. According to the AT3 standards, the learning opportunities that can arise from discussions can prove to be an effective form of feedback, as they stimulate student thinking, resulting in a better understanding. In addition, discussions around each topic can provide a valuable insight into the student's progress and can reveal misconceptions. This could be used as a formative assessment. As a result of identifying these misconceptions, I was able to provide verbal feedback instantly. As mentioned earlier, students had identified some practical goals they wished to achieve. As done with the theoretical lessons, it was important to measure students' current level to help guide future lessons. To do this, I decided it would be important to analyse where they were at in progress with their goals in week 1. Students aimed to kick 10 goals, for which we recorded the statistics of how many either made the goal, didn't make the distance, or were inaccurate. This test was revisited during week 4 as the students were re-administered the test to see if students had progressed with their skill development. While this aspect of the lesson was administered as a test, this also proved to be a form of intrinsic feedback for each student as they could physically feel the movements while they were being performed, as well as a form of extrinsic feedback as the student could instantly see where the ball went as a result of their movements. Furthermore, according to Decky and Ryan, extrinsic feedback is directly linked to leading to intrinsic motivation. During the 4 weeks, it was vital to incorporate ICT into the development of student skills as it enables students to replay and slow down data for a more intrinsic analysis of each skill to help improve performance. This proved to be vital in improving the students' kicking abilities as we could break down each skill into its individual components and discuss which areas needed more focus, resulting in discussion of how we were going to make these changes. According to Lee, ICT is significantly fast and reliable, giving us instant feedback to visually use as it can be hard just using verbal communication for teacher to student feedback. During the practical component of each lesson, it was important for the students to provide peer feedback to their partner. According to the New South Wales Government Department of Education and Communities, peer feedback can provide students with the opportunity to give and receive feedback to help the improvement of a skill. Analysing a peer's technique is not only useful for student receiving feedback, however, helps deepen the understanding of the student analysing their peer's technique. We provided peer feedback by establishing the 3 main components of the drop punt kick. We decided that the kick was made up of 3 main components: the grip, the release, and the contact. It was important for the students to have a guide of how the skill should be executed, so we discussed, watched videos, and took down notes on what we were looking for in our peers' efforts. While the planning of these lessons had to be fluid and adapted often, it was important I was consistently ensuring I was teaching to the standards of the Australian curriculum. Therefore, I made it evident in my lesson plans, stated on the slides, which health and physical education content descriptors were the main focus of each lesson. In conclusion, based on the students' learning outcomes over the 4-week period, it was evident that the vast variety of forms of feedback, written, verbal, video, peer feedback, and intrinsic and extrinsic feedback, proved to be vital in achieving student goals. The importance of ensuring students are consistently setting goals in every aspect of their learning is now evident, as I must ensure students' motivation is high. I will endeavour to ensure my future teachings encompass all of these methods of feedback and goal setting in my teachings to ensure student success.